He reaches for the paper coffee cup before it cools too much. The lid is slightly loose. It always is. He presses it down with his thumb. Not hard, just enough to hear the soft click. Then he lets his hand rest there a moment longer than necessary. The chair across from him is empty. It has been empty every morning, and yet he still looks at it before sitting down. Steam rises in a thin line and disappears. The smell is familiar, burnt, slightly bitter. He takes a small sip, not because he wants it, but because that is what he does first. The cafe hums around him. Low voices, the sound of milk being steamed, a door opening and closing. Nothing unusual, nothing that asks for attention. He adjusts the paper coffee cup so the seam faces away from him. He does not know why. She comes in a few minutes later. She always does. He does not look up immediately. He waits for the quiet shift in the air. The pause near the counter. The soft shuffle of someone deciding what to order even though the choice is already made. Only then does he glance up. She stands in the same place each time. Not close enough to touch. Not far enough to ignore. She orders something simple. He has never heard the full sentence, only the rhythm of it. Calm, certain, like someone who belongs to her own routine. She chooses a table by the window. Not his table. Never his table. The paper coffee cup warms his palm. He rotates it slowly, reading nothing on its blank surface. Outside the window, nothing changes. Inside, nothing changes either. He finishes half the cup before she takes her first sip. That is how it always goes. At some point, their eyes meet. Not long. Not long enough to feel like anything deliberate. He nods once. So does she. No smile. No signal. Just acknowledgement. The paper coffee cup sits between his hands like something temporary that pretends to matter. He wonders, briefly, what would happen if he stood up instead of finishing the drink. The thought does not stay long. He begins arriving earlier. Not much earlier. Just enough to notice the light before it settles. The paper coffee cup waits on the counter each morning, identical to the one before. He takes it with both hands now, as if the warmth needs protecting. He chooses the same table. He tells himself it is simply comfortable there. The chair does not wobble. The view is familiar. The door is always within sight. She continues to come in a few minutes after he sits down. Every time, he learns the small sounds that belong to her. The way her bag brushes the side of the counter. The brief clearing of her throat before she speaks. The soft tap of her card against the machine. He keeps his eyes on the paper coffee cup when she walks past. The lid has a tiny raised edge. His thumb traces in circles. Once, twice, over and over. He starts leaving a little space on his table. Not enough for another chair to fit easily. Just enough that it would not feel crowded. The paper coffee cup becomes something he holds longer than necessary. He slows his drinking. He times it. If he finishes too soon, he orders another. He does not need the second one. Steam rises and disappears, the same as always. The cup never changes. The seam stays in the same place. The surface remains blank. Some mornings their eyes meet longer than before. Not by much. A second more, perhaps. It feels like a hell breath. He notices the way she wraps her hands around her own cup, both palms pressed against the thin paper, as if she is steadying herself. He wonders if she waits for something too. The cafe fills and empties in quiet cycles. People come, people leave. Conversations start and end. He remains seated. One morning, she almost chooses the table closer to his. Almost. She pauses, looks at the chair across from him, then continues past it, back to the window. He lowers his eyes quickly. The paper coffee cup trembles slightly in his hands, though he tells himself it is only from the heat. By the time he looks up again, she is already seated. He takes a sip that tastes like nothing. The moment moves on without asking him. One morning, the rhythm shifts. Not loudly. Not enough for anyone else to notice. He arrives at the usual time. The paper coffee cup is warm in his hands. Lid pressed down with that same quiet click. He sits. He waits. The door opens. She steps inside, but this time she hesitates near the entrance, as if she has forgotten something. He feels it before he understands it. His fingers tighten around the paper coffee cup. The thin wall bends slightly under the pressure. He loosens his grip, careful not to leave a mark. She orders as she always does. The same rhythm, the same tone. But when she turns, she does not walk toward the window. She looks directly at the empty chair across from him. He does not move. The cafe hum continues. Milk steaming. Cup stacking. Someone laughing softly behind him. She takes a few steps closer. Slow. Not uncertain. Just measured. He lowers his eyes to the paper coffee cup, watching the faint shadow of steam curl upward. His thumb presses against the seam. He counts his breaths. 1, 2, 3. The chair across from him scrapes lightly against the floor. She sits down. The distance between them is smaller now. Close enough to notice the warmth from her cup. Close enough to hear her breathing settle. He lifts his gaze. Their eyes meet and do not immediately look away. It is not dramatic. It is not intense. It is simply longer than before. He opens his mouth, but no sound follows. The paper coffee cup rests between his hands. The lid is still slightly loose. He presses it down again, though it is not needed. She adjusts her cup, aligning it carefully with the edge of the table. For a moment, it feels as though something has already begun. Then someone calls her name from the counter. Not loudly, just enough. She turns her head toward the sound. A brief apology flickers across her face, though no words are spoken. She stands. The chair slides back into place. He watches her walk to the counter, speak quietly, nod once. When she returns, she does not come back to his table. She pauses near it, looks at him, holds his gaze for a heartbeat longer than usual. Then she moves toward the door. The paper coffee cup cools in his hands. He does not follow. The chair across from him stays empty the next morning. He notices it before he notices the taste of the coffee. The paper coffee cup is already in his hands. Warm, familiar, unchanged. He presses the lid down, though it no longer makes the soft click. He waits for the door to open. It opens. Someone else walks in. He keeps his eyes on the table. The cafe moves through its usual sounds. Orders called out. Cups placed down. Chairs shifting. The window brightens, then dulls. He tells himself she might be late. He slows his drinking. The paper coffee cup turns slowly between his palms. The seam passes under his thumb again and again. He finishes half, then stops. He leaves the rest untouched, as if saving time inside it. The door opens again. Not her. He stays longer than usual. Long enough for the steam to disappear completely. Long enough for the warmth to fade from the thin paper wall. He imagines standing up and asking the barista something simple. Just a small question. A detail. A name. He does not. The paper coffee cup feels lighter when it is empty. Too light. The next morning, he arrives earlier. The chair is still empty. He does not look at the door as often now. He looks at the space across from him instead, as if the absence itself might shift. Days pass, or maybe only a few. The routine remains. The cup, the table, the window. At some point, he realizes he never heard her name clearly. Not once. He had been close enough to see the small lines near her eyes when she almost smiled. Close enough to share a table. Not close enough to ask. The paper coffee cup rests between his hands. Unchanged. He finishes it without waiting anymore. He leaves before the door opens. Not every opportunity disappears. Some simply do not return. Quietly. Without warning. If you have ever thought, I should have acted then, this story may have reached you.